What's up, guys? Defying Finance. I wanted to go over a chart here with Bitcoin. Maybe I'll jump into some of the other cryptos here when I share my screen. But something important that I had put on there quite a while back. I mean, I think this might even be back in, when was this? Maybe December 2021, right? It's quite a while ago. I still have my old chart, my old notes that were on here, which I think it's showing that either these whales, people from Wall Street, banks, whoever's playing this market, whether they're shorting it through the futures or whatnot, it doesn't matter to me. The point is they're playing it based on technical charting patterns. And I can show you that. Let me share my screen here. Here we go. So if we take a look at this, let me zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. So I had some old notes here. If you go back and watch some of my very first videos I was posting, you'll see it without some of this stuff here, right? Because it didn't exist yet. Well, as we had come off of this head right here, I was saying, we may be building a head and shoulders. Let me put this on a daily chart for you. I said we may be building a head and shoulders. So what we had to watch, because first we had this big wick down. You can see this red line here. Shot way down, which built a neckline over here, and it came right back up. And what I wanted to know was, is this little thing going to end up being that shoulder? Are we going to build a more broad shoulder? What's going to happen here? So I put an arrow and I said, what we want to watch is this purple sell zone. Are we going to come up to this peak? So 53,000 is that place we want to be watching. You see a note here. Be watching this purple zone between 49,000 and 53,000. We could see the real shoulder building on this, not only a double top, right? You have these 2 points up here, not only a double top, but a head and shoulders. Not good. Sure enough, that's what happened. You could see right at this shoulder point here, you had the 50-day crossing the 100-day moving average. That in itself is generally a bearish case, short-term, long-term, doesn't matter. Really, you're just looking at what is happening overall, because that could turn around really quick too, right? But that would be a single indicator. Then you have the shape of the pattern here. That would be an indicator, right? You're also, if you drew a line here, this line, you already broke your trend pattern. So there were quite a few things that were pointing toward, hey, this isn't good. You can see the RSI down here. That's the relative strength index. It was relatively weak, but right at this point, you couldn't tell yet. But what we were trying to see is, are we going to make it back up, which we did. We made it back up to this midpoint, but we got rejected there. Now, it bounced a little bit before it started heading down. As soon as you see this candle right here go down, that was another indicator of, hey, this is going to sell off. So that's why I was telling people at that time, hey, be careful. This isn't looking good. You got to remove leverage and stuff like that, because I think you're about to get smoked. Sure enough, that's where we went. Eventually, we started to have this slight recovery. We broke this 200-day moving average, which again is another indicator of, hey, this isn't good, right? But we came down to this green line. I placed this here. This would be a pretty strong support zone from a technical standpoint. It doesn't mean it has to stop there, right? So you could see it would have been an older high from January 2021. What you want to see is a bounce off of those points and start to rise higher. And you can see it was also an old support zone. We came down, we touched it again, right? We didn't want to see that break if you thought that Bitcoin, wasn't going to sell off. Well, what had happened, actually, that's a 40,000 range. So when we broke through the 40,000, your next support zone was the 30,000 range. That's what I meant to say. So I had drawn this out a while ago, and I'd said, if we break this 40, we are highly likely to head down to that support zone at 30,000, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The question is, does it hold? Now, it's held multiple times over and over. So that's an incredibly strong support zone. But you can see my note up here. I had typed in, if we do end up with a head and shoulders, we have to pay very close attention to 30,000 level. Once this lets go, there is very little support on this weekly chart. at 20,000. I'm using a daily right now, but very similar. So expect to see a huge sell-off. X marks the spot, $12,000 to $10,000. So I'd put that down because there's obviously a lot of support in this zone. Now, really what you'd want to see is this old 2018 high at, what would that be, 19,000, 19,500, 19,700, somewhere around there, 20,000. You'd want to see that be that next level of support. Before we got here, I drew out this line of, hey, you guys got to keep watching this, because you may end up trading sideways, trading down a little bit, and have this pump and then a sell-off. And I mean, look at this. It's so creepy. It's like voodoo, right? That's what I was saying in one of my other videos. I drew this out and it almost followed this exactly. Look at that. You have your 2 points here. This just was sooner. And then you have this sell-off. I mean, I just drew that with my mouse just scribbling on the screen. But that's the thing. It follows these patterns. And the reason I knew it would sort of level off around here is because there was support. The reason I knew it would sort of level off around here is because of the support at 20, right? That tells me they're playing technical indicators. The reason that they're playing technical indicators, I mean, in all honesty, is because there are no fundamentals in crypto like the stock market that people are used to playing, right? You can look at somebody's earnings per share. You can look at their PE ratios. You know what the earnings are for the company. How much debt do they have? You can look at a lot of different things on somebody's balance sheet or their income statement. And you still have the macro side of things, right? Where you have to pay attention to what's happening in the world. If, there's giant, tsunami that wipes out a forest of orange trees, well, you probably know what's going to happen, right? That's what you're looking at in the market in general. A lot of that stuff you don't really get in the crypto world. So most of this is played by psychology and chart patterns. That's really what it is, right? Besides like Paxos Gold or something, because it's physically backed by something. But let's go back to this chart here. So if we take a look at the relative strength index, now we're really low. Okay, that could be the beginning of a bottom. Now, that doesn't mean the price here is going to stay around this 20,000. Here's what I think, I don't want to say is going to happen, but what I think the probability is pointing to that is going to happen. Okay, if that makes any sense. The probabilities are increasing that Bitcoin is going to sell off. And of course, it's going to drag the market down with it. And a lot of that has to do with other macro things going on right now. The stock market is not done selling off. Okay, so I think what we're seeing, we can see we're in the green today with Bitcoin. We could see we actually fell down to the $17,000 range. I had some old buy zones that I was setting up here saying, hey, if this bounces around 30,000 for a while, which it did, at some point you have to start deciding to pick away at this, right? It's got to be somewhere between that 30 and 27 range. And the reason I had that is because a lot of times people will set up these orders, to sell or to even buy, right, down below that mark. And they are the wick on that candle. So maybe it was going to sell down to 20, but someone had an order down at 18, and whoever was desperate to sell actually filled that order, and that's the new price. But if we broke that and you thought we were going to trade in a zone of 15 to 20 for a while, then here's your next buy zone. Well, we fell into both of those buy zones. I'm sure there are some people and whales and big players that are accumulating in these zones, because ultimately you don't know where anything's going. But seeing that we broke this 20, here's what I think you need to be careful of right now. If I take this back, let's go back to a weekly. Let me pull up a weekly here. On the daily, we can see the 50-day moving average, that yellow line right here, coming down. Technically, we can run up to that in the short term. If you're thinking about this from like the short-term perspective, you could see a run up, right? Maybe we run back up near that, pretty close even to 30,000. We get to the 27, and this could happen really quick. And then you see the sell-off again, right? I think what's happening right now, either we're already at that point, so at around 22,000 or so, we will get rejected, which we did. We're going to sell between 20 and 22, and then we see that big leg down where we head down towards 10 to 12,000 bucks. I don't even know that that's the bottom. It really just depends on what in the world is happening, right? If the stock market continues to sell off, which I do think that it's going to be the case, it could drag it further down than this, right? But I don't have to play that game, right? I have my orders in already on a bunch of different cryptos that would be similar, market wise, percentage wise. You can play that old 80% sell off from its high and 90 to 95 to 98% sell off from a high of some of these other cryptos, right? That's actually working. So I have a lot of orders in those zones. Some of them might not fill. I have some really low ones that it may never get to that point, but I have other ones above that that'll probably fill. So looking at this, if we go to a weekly, check this out. Now, this is not a good sign. Now, a weekly chart is clearly more stable. You get to see what's happening over that week. What did people ultimately decide? So it's not like a daily where it's all over the place, right? Well, look at this. Here's your 200-day moving average. We broke that. That's a bearish sign. Now we're heading back into the green, and this doesn't necessarily mean that this has to happen, but we got rejected at about 22,000 right here. If this 200-day becomes resistance, you got a problem. This is going to sell off. I think it's highly unlikely that this becomes resistance and then we blow through it and take off, back to new highs or even to 40,000, right? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this is going to become resistance even for a while, and we have to watch this 50-day. If this 50-day comes down and crosses the 100 on a weekly chart and this is still resistance, this thing's going to sell off. But when you look at the RSI, you say, well, it's already, got crushed. But you have your longer moving average here in the yellow line. I think that yellow line, I mean, even if you look back here in 2019, right, your yellow line just takes longer to get there. It's just a different, calculation that you have up here for the RSI. So I think the yellow's got to come down for a while. It's got to continue to lose strength over time. So I don't think we're at that bottom yet. So be watching to see if this 200-day becomes resistance, which I think it already is. That's your bearish sign. And you can see, between 20,000 and let's say 12, there is no support on it from a technical standpoint. There's no support. You could see that rally again. 2 points you could watch for, right? You'll see that rally, this 100-day. Let me just draw on this real quick. Let's say this 100-day starts to look something like this, right? Let's draw this out on the 52. I don't think the 50, I think the 50 is going to fall much faster than that. As it stays here, it's going to go like this. Okay. So let's draw this out a little more. It takes a while for the 200-day to fall, but somewhere around this time, let's call it August. Okay. Sometime in August, not that it has to play out this way, but this becomes resistance for a while. We get that cross. Your yellow line on the RSI has its time to come down. You could see this break that 200-day. I think it would be somewhat odd, but it break the 200-day and try to work its way up to 30,000. Now, if all of this under 30,000 that used to be support becomes resistance, again, that's a bad sign. You're topping. That's what it's telling you from a technical standpoint. But that would alter how this would look. So your 50-day might not cross the 100-day yet. Okay, so that would be a selling opportunity into that run, and you would see this RSI come up, and you'd be watching. Okay, if this support starts to become resistance, and right here on the RSI midpoint starts to become resistance, then it's just like this 200-day moving average thing. You're going to sell back off. And I think it would happen really quickly. You're going to blow through that 20,000 level in that scenario. Right now, we might not blow through the 20,000 level because people will be taking that opportunity to sell up here to get whatever they could back. we may sell sideways for a little while, kind of work our way down, bounce off this 200-day, and eventually you're going to get a couple big legs down. And I think the bottom could be in by the end of the year. That's what I'm watching for. I think the bottom could be in by the end of the year. That's not including some war or something that breaks out, or government comes up with some crazy program. They're going to give everybody money or something. Who knows what's going to happen with that? That would change that scenario. But what's going to happen if we get these sell-offs, you're going to see some quick legs. Now, I mean, it'll be boom. You might get a bounce, boom. They'll be quick. And when you see these huge wicks come down, let's see up here, something like this guy right here. You'll see just a couple of those. It'll bounce into that zone and it'll never return. So if you're the guy who has some orders in, you're going to fill those orders. It gets that bounce, and maybe it trades sideways here. You're up 100% on maybe that particular trade. It bounces right up to 20,000. Let's say it drops to 10, right? Drops to 10,000. You fill that order. It's going to be incredibly short-lived for that moment. It bounces back up to 15, 17, or something like that. And then it starts to slowly work its way up over the next couple of years. Well, you want to be that guy in those orders, right? So I think the bottom is coming. I think we'll also see the bottom in the stock market, hopefully this year. We'll have to see. The Nasdaq still isn't down enough. Matter of fact, we can pull that up real quick. I mean, this is tracking the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, so it's not like the crypto world's running, its own game. Oops, let me clear that real quick. Get rid of my brush here. There we go. Okay. So if we take a look at the S&P, I think we are officially in a bear market, even on a weekly chart. Yeah, we're definitely in a bear market on a weekly chart. You see a little bit of support here. I wouldn't count on that. The lines that I've drawn before that we're waiting on, you want to see, if you're bullish in the stock market, you want to see this become your support. I'm not bullish in the stock market. I think it's going to go lower. You can see my orange zone I put here a while back. I think this is going to be that buy zone. You're looking for something like this to be the floor, around 24, 2,500, somewhere around there to be that floor. Otherwise, your floor you're hoping is this 2,200. I think accumulating is going to be wise through this whole zone. I mean, really even below this. When you're looking at the moving averages here, you can see this is trending down now. We've been down for a while. Even if it trades sideways right here, it's still going to come down. Some of this will come down. When it crosses this 100-day on a weekly chart, you're in a bearish situation. We're already in a bear market price-wise or percentage-wise, but you get another indicator like that, you got a real problem. And of course, you can always check these on a daily to see if it's crossing first. Now, when we look at this, I think this is upwards of 30% was the low. That was 33%. We're down 28%. You can see right here, there's a little bit of support there. You wanted that to be the main support, but we broke that. We came down to this level. There's a little bit of support there. What looks good on the Nasdaq from a technical standpoint is the 200-day here, right? You see it multiple times. That had become support. That's what you want to see. If you want to see that market continue to go up, there's a lot of technical traders that are going to trade based on that. But what you don't see here is your 50-day moving average coming down to cross the 100-day. That's why these maintain support. Now, it got close here back in 2019. 2018, we almost went into a financial crisis there. I think they staved it off, but we're definitely heading into it now. You notice the shape of this now. Okay, so if I open this up bigger so you can see, again, here's your support. We did break the 100. The 200 became a longer term support. If this crosses 100-day, I think we break that 200-day, and at a minimum, the Nasdaq's going to around that 9,700 point at a minimum. Otherwise, maybe we start to see 77, and ultimately you know, you want to see that old support level here at 6,700 be the support. And what would that be for a sell-off? Let's check on highs here. 60% sell-off. I mean, this is really close to the 2008 crisis, right? But again, I think it'll be similar to crypto. You'll get these quick days, kind of like what happened during COVID. You can see it. You can even see it right here back in the 2018-19 when the Fed was hiking rates back then, right? You end up getting a big leg down, and you want to be that buyer. You can see, boom, people were buying and we never returned, right? This was an odd crisis. We never shut down the whole economy before, but you want to be that buyer in that point. Same right here. You want to be the buyer in this point because generally you're not going to see a return there. You bounce up, you might trade sideways. It's just not as steep of a pattern, right? So we could take a quick look at some of these other stocks. Tesla, obviously, I think they got a lot of room to fall. We broke the 100-day. This 100-day on a weekly chart looks like we climbed above it a tiny bit, but that's not enough to tell me that it's not resistance. So again, the reason this is important to crypto is because crypto is trading with all this stuff, right? It's not independent of it right now. So if this 100-day is your resistance, you know, your next support level, I mean, really it was here at 540, which you would think this would be good support because you have your high here, an old high, and then you have support right above it. So somewhere old support or will become support. So I think you might see a stop here. But if we break that level, I mean, honestly, I think Tesla is coming down towards this. I could be wrong, but this 180 level, maybe even lower than that into the 100 level because of the PE ratio, right? The price to earnings. Plus, we're going into a recession, right? A lot of these companies are going to be reporting bad earnings. Inflation's been a problem. It's not the corporations are hurting you or anything. It's inflation is the printing of money, even credit. So if banks are lending money out, that's an expansion of the currency supply. Okay. So I still think there's just a long way to go down. We could see oil. Now, I had mentioned this, that we have this potential new support zone. You want to see that become support. You can see buyers are coming in, buying up this sell-off, big wick down. They're assuming that inflation's going to stop. Now, if we pull back out, you know, we could see what's happened before. We broke an old one back here in 2007-8. Now these are oil companies. Okay, this is XLE, so it's an ETF of oil companies. This is an actual oil itself. I could pull that chart up too. It's down here, but really I wanted to see what the companies were doing. Some of this has to do with a potential tax they want to do on these oil producers. We'll see what happens with that. But if this becomes support, I still think it's going to continue to ride up. You could see my orange line here is the ultimate support on this long run trend. I think we're going to have incredible increase, just like we've had here, just like we've had here. It's just repeating. That's all it's doing. I had a mark on here that I think XLE has the potential to go to $130. We'll see what happens with that. But again, on the way up, I think here's our trend line, this orange line here. I've got a bunch of lines going on here, but we could see the 50-day had crossed back through the 200, crossed back through the 100. We got this whole trend line of this orange line I put in here. So I had said before, you can see XLE sell off back down to this trend line and then just continue. And sometimes you have traders who you see it separate from this trend line dramatically, and you think, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take some profits along the way here. I think it's going to come back down and I'll rebuy it when it does. I didn't end up doing that. We just held the whole time. It sold off here. I think, you know, it could sell off a little more, but we'll see what the next inflation report is going to be. Could be even higher. And if that's the case, we're just going to see these things explode higher. And all of this is going to affect the crypto market. You could see here with oil, I had put the purple band here of this would be your potential resistance zones, right? If this became resistance, if this becomes resistance, like that's the zone you want to see. blow through. Well, it did blow through it, but it got rejected. It came back down in here. So we are in a zone of resistance, technically speaking, for oil. We'll see what plays out. I still think oil is going to continue going higher due to inflation, of course, and other things in the world. Here's your next level of real deal resistance we want to watch out for. And I think we're definitely going to see that $130 a barrel. We got super close. Let's see here. What do I got? I mean, come on. I said 130, 129 or so. We're close. So we got there. But we got to see if we're going to break this old high in 2008. I don't know what's going to happen with it. But anyway, this is becoming a long video. So if you found that valuable, make sure you like and subscribe. I haven't been able to make a lot of videos lately. I'm really busy. But again, just a quick recap. I think it's highly likely Bitcoin visits the $10,000 to $12,000 range. We want to be watching this 200-day on a weekly chart to see if it becomes resistance. Daily chart as well. You'll see it start to happen there first and maybe a different level. But on a daily chart, you see the 50s cross the 100. It's crossed the 200. Eventually, you're going to see this curve up. But I don't think the pain's over yet. This is why you can't get caught up in the hype. A lot of people get caught up in the hype of they want to believe things are going higher. You can't live like that. You got to be realistic. You got to be willing to take some money off the table. The Celsius thing, that's a whole nother can of worms, right? That's like an unexpected thing. Man, I don't think it's over for BlockFi and Voyager. All these places are going to get hit with this. Depends on who has how much leverage. It's a little different because this is it's a bank run, but the assets are actually still there. They may be lent out, but they're still there, right? It's coming back in. You're seeing Celsius, like their Bitcoin level, the liquidation points been dropping and dropping. So assets are coming in. Just when are they going to come out back to the people? I guess we'll find out. Anyway, make sure, again, you like and subscribe. I don't know where you're watching this video from or when you're watching it. You might be watching this a year later. I don't know, but watch an ad. It's free content. Anyway, have a good one. I'll make another video.